Back when this channel first started, we did a series called Faction Mastery Guides where we would weigh up the race against 5 separate criteria. Those videos took forever to do, but I still think there was something to be said and learned from those videos because it showed that just the pretty little panes that open up provide mechanics does not always equate to power. A faction is the culmination of its abilities against the challenge that it starts with. Many factions with incredibly powerful mechanics often are there to compensate with either very difficult geography, politics, lack of diplomacy, or all of the above. So the 5 metric system was to assess strategy, which is your campaign bonuses, geography, your ability to traverse the terrain around you, and maybe your lack of natural borders where you start. Diplomacy, essentially the race's ability to choose their engagements via diplomacy or just not being genuinely hated by their neighbors. And then of course military, the ability to win on the battlefield, and economy, your ability to support yourself and grow your empire. Ultimate goal here is that we want to have this list that you see right here. We want to finish this entire table with every legendary lord in the game, but we will be covering it race by race. Now, if this is an idea you don't like, let me know in the comments, or if you think it could be tweaked. Otherwise, this could be really interesting, and we will be assessing factions that have been out for a while when they get their makeover so we can see how they climb up and down the ladder. This might be a 1 episode only, or it could be something that's a long-lived series on the channel, but today we're doing the Chaos Dwarfs to wrap up this series. I could really try to inflate my runtime by going from worst to best, but I'd rather do the right thing by you guys and start with the strongest because that's usually the order you should play them with. By the way guys, we are measuring the faction, not just the lord, not just their faction together, their entire package. A higher score is a more powerful faction, thus will be easier and one you should probably attempt first. Kicking off with our number 1 Chaos Dwarf, and he's absolutely the one that you should play, and I'm going to speak for him and he's going to speak for a lot of the other lords here, well all 3 of them, because they are very similar. I've got to say, one criticism I have of the Chaos Dwarfs is there is not a lot of difference between their faction-wide buffs. The High Priest of Hashut, which is Astragoth's faction-wide bonuses, give him an extra 10% Conclave influence, which is good. This will allow you to conquer the Tower of Zar much quicker. We have the Tower of Zar, which gives a plethora of faction-wide abilities, both on and off the battlefield. We can summon caravans to go and get resources, as well as a plethora of really powerful items, some of which will also boost you on the campaign map. Upgrades at the Hellforge, as well as your ability to get settlements up to tier 5 straight away when you have an abundance of conclave influence and you have nothing else to do with it by the late game. Now he himself is a very powerful legendary lord. This boosts his military rating because he can actually cast, he can run around the battlefield, he gets pretty much the best of both worlds by having 2 passives which will damage the enemy from far even more, and he gives excellent buffs to Bull Centaur Renders. When we look at his personal trait, he gives them 15% ward save, very powerful. He improves the recovery of his own army, and he's just a very strong lord. His personal tree really does help him in his score, particularly for diplomacy. As we see here, he gets an extra 15 for any chaos affiliated faction. So at level 13 you can get this, and it's absolutely worth it. This is so beneficial because it will really help you. Now we've got the mod which helps you remove the fog of war. Do not play with this on. This will ruin your campaigns, by the way. Do not, if you accidentally leave this on, if you're messing around, turn it off straight away, please. Okay, so if we look up here, we start up here. We also have Drazhoath, a decent distance down here, but you should absolutely be looking to join these borders as well as join your border with Zhatan the Black in good time. But if you can keep the forces of chaos alive, this will allow you to make a nice defensive frontier across here, unite your Chaos Dwarf brethren, and you can then take the fight in any direction you want because you have no limitation with climate. Very powerful. All 3 Chaos Dwarfs get 4 3/4 stars because they have so much between the convoys, the tower itself, the bonuses that they get throughout their entire empire. They are not short of options, and they can absolutely, particularly through the Tower of Zar, just blow themselves up incredibly, as well as their ability to use conclave influence to bolster the level of the settlements they acquire. We can underway anywhere we want. You are not going to get outmaneuvered by any other faction. You usually have an advantage in the way that they'll have to underway and use up all their movement to get to you. So if you can work around this, build factories and towers on these more vulnerable points, you can absolutely work around that, and they land 4.5 stars for geography. Now military, this is one of the most interesting ones. We start off only able to get basic goblins, and we have unit caps, so they are one of the most complete rosters, and you would think that they are a 5-star roster, but they fall short at 4 3/4 because of the limitations of unit caps. And this is kind of what makes this faction so fun, is you start off needing to hire hobgoblins, and as you move up and eventually evolve your military, you will have less of them and more chaos dwarfs manning the front line, manning the artillery, and of course manning those juicy firepower units. Last up we have economy, and the economy of course is the most divisive area of the chaos dwarfs because it is just so difficult to work your way around. I've dedicated a video to the chaos dwarf economy as well as it is touched on the mastery guide, but if you know anything about these guys, it is probably the most complex, but it's actually very rewarding and you can absolutely make it work for you. However, you are at the mercy of different resources and you do need to build yourself around these resources, and they only land at 4 stars for economy, so still very strong. Gives Astragoth Ironhand the #1 dwarf, the one that you should start your campaigns with because it's the most flavorful and complete experience, and he lands a whopping 89% overall. Just a quick reminder guys, if you are enjoying the video, please consider liking and subscribing, it really helps out. Ask any question in the comments, I answer everything, and if you'd like to talk strategy, feel free to join the Discord. Cheers. Our next Chaos Dwarf Lord, and my personal favourite, Drazhoath the Ashen, and I love this guy. He has the most difficult start position, but if you've passed Astragoth Ironhand, you should absolutely give this guy a go. He is a lot of fun, and he's very powerful. So in terms of the strategy score, well, he's 4 3/4 stars because he's pretty much exactly the same. You've got convoys, all the good stuff, it's not worth repeating. As for geography, it's pretty much exactly the same. You have all the same advantages of mobility. You can underpass underneath these rivers, under the mountains, and you have a huge advantage over, say, the ogres, over so many of your foes. Now, moving to diplomacy, he's nowhere near the statesman that Astragoth is. Unfortunately, we don't get any bonuses to diplomacy, and there is a lot of diplomacy headaches to be had. The most interesting thing is Imric. So early High Elves are way stronger than early Chaos Dwarfs. You need to understand this. If you go head on with a High Elf army in the early stages, you have a very high chance of getting roasted unless you're able to flank them with sneaky gits or wolf riders, but if you go head on, you will lose. However, mid to late game, Chaos Dwarfs absolutely melt High Elf armies, so if you're going to take on Imric early, which you'll probably need to, just be aware of this limitation. I would recommend taking him out early, but if you do hold off, you'll find it easier as the game goes on. However, this does land his diplomacy skill at 3 3/4 stars. But moving on to military, this is where we start to see some benefit here. His Drazhoath specializes in buffing his army up. You see he's got armament output as well as reduced cost to the Hellforge, and this will allow you to power up your units in the late game. But if we look at his personal tree, basically everything here is geared towards putting upgrades on your troops. He gives excellent buffs to Infernal Guard, great for the Fireglade version, as well as excellent bonuses to economy. Before we move on to that, he is a flying caster. Flying casters on big beasts that have incredible output are the most powerful lord types in this game, and he is just pretty much encapsulates that. He flies around on Cinderbreath, his Bale Taurus, able to just wreck anything he charges into, and trust me, overcast Flames with Astragoth and you will not be disappointed. This absolutely melts whole legions of infantry. It's absolutely glorious. Closing up, we have economy, and this is where his tree also benefits. He is just very efficient at building up. I love this skill right here, reducing your construction time and construction cost. Don't ever shun construction buffs. This is your biggest expenditure other than military, so don't snub your nose at it. Breed of Asgoth will also give you faction-wide bonuses to raw materials as well as gold production, so very nice there. This lands in 4 1/4 stars in economy, a slight edge. Overall, his game plan's basically the same, and Drazhoath lands 88% overall. Finally, for our last and I guess least legendary lord, we have the only one that is not a sorcerer or prophet. We have Zhatan the Black, the most sadistic and cruel bookkeeper that you do not ever want to be captured by, but he starts the most cushy start position. That does need to be said, so you would think this guy is going to be overall the easiest, but this is one reason why I love this rating system, is that you would think he has pretty much the same tools, he starts at the same spot, but we're about to see he's not quite as powerful as his brethren. Looking at his faction, he gets more convoys, and a reduction in hiring artillery units. However, whilst these are great units to get, and convoys are nice, these are tools that are excellent to help you build up to a really powerful mid-game, but all Chaos Dwarf factions are strong by the mid-game. This won't help you get off the ground. So overall, strategy score is exactly the same, 4 3/4 stars. Whilst he has the benefit of being against the edge of the map, in terms of diplomacy, he's still only 3 3/4 stars. You can be friendly with Chaos Lords here, you can be friendly with your Dowie's brethren over here, but you have all of Cathay that absolutely hate you. You have greenskins here and ogres that absolutely hate you, and this starting area here is honestly a bit trickier than one would actually expect in the early stages. But when we move to military, this is where he only lands 4.5 stars, only 4.5, right? But that's because Zhatan as a lord himself doesn't quite have the punch that the other lords do. This means that your early game where you need a really powerful lord, because of your unit caps, won't be able to deliver as much value on the battlefield, so he only gets 4.5 stars. This is an incredibly high score. Do not get dissuaded from thinking that they're weak on the battlefield. Hobgoblins can really punch up, particularly if you have Gordad's Backstabber in that army, but we do need to contextualize that the early game is designed to keep you contained, and your powerful lords are what are going to help carry you there. Looking at his personal tree, we see Zhatan's specialty is absolutely economy, and he lands 4 1/4 stars for this. He gets more captives, which means you can power up your economy more. You can sell extra captives if you need them. You can also build your structures quicker, which can also produce more resources. Do not underestimate his natural skill as well as Subjugator, which will give you even more captives. Very, very powerful. You can load his army up with artillery and reduce the upkeep of it. And overall, he is a very good general, but he's not an army slaying sorcerer like his brethren. So still very, very strong. Overall, still lands 87% overall, but not quite as strong as the others. And he is the last one that you should do. I recommend the other two, but overall, that lands the Chaos Dwarfs respectively, 89, 88, and 87%. Not the creme de la creme, but boy are they close, and they're incredibly strong if you know what you're doing. Let me know in the comments if you like this format, if it's one you want us to bring back. This is where they sit currently on the table, and we can really have some fun here exploring it. And if you disagree, please let me know in the comments. This is such an open forum for debate. I'm so welcome to be proven wrong, have these discussions. This is a very subjective way of measuring them, but ultimately it would be great to have a list of all the lords, and you can see with your own eyes. These are going to be the best ways to start because they're strongest, moving our way down to more difficult factions, which will really help you prove your grit as a player. And that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed, please consider liking and subbing. We're on the road to 10k subs. Thank you so much for the interest, even when we've been through a quiet spot. This is Elven. See you next time.